Hey guys, what's going on? This is Travis P11. I want to welcome you back to the channel. Well guys, it is project time again for my 2001 Jeep Cherokee Sport. Problem I've been having recently is when the auxiliary electric fan kicks in. Now this is not the main fan coming off the engine block, but the fan sitting off to the side on the driver's side. When that kicks on, it's been making some pretty horrendous noises, and I got some kind of a feeling at some point here it's probably just going to freeze up and quit working. So we're going to go ahead and replace it. When you're looking for one of these auxiliary cooler fans, one of the first places you might go would be, say, Advanced Auto Parts and O'Reilly, and those are readily available there. If you want to save a little bit of money, you can go to Amazon, which is what I did, and I picked up the TYC cooling fan, and this is the product number 620560, which is made for 97 to 01 Jeep Cherokees with the inline 6. I'm assuming it's going to work with the Grand Cherokees, but I could be wrong. You might want to do some extra investigating yourself. So we're going to do a little unboxing, and then we're going to show you how to install this part. Now, just a little bit about the part itself and the installation. I'm a shade tree mechanic. I'm somebody who just works on cars for fun. I'm not an expert mechanic. There may be something different along the process that you could recommend to people. Please do so in the feedback section down below on this video. And again, I don't know how this is going to go. I've never done it before, but it looks pretty simple. It looks like a couple bolts, a single plug, but there's a few things that we want to do to make the process easier and safer. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check this fan out, and we will go from there. Okay guys, so I paid about $58 and some odd cents delivered to my home, so really it wasn't too bad of a price. It was maybe 20 or 30 bucks cheaper than the competition. I have seen people say that when their main fan has failed on their Jeep, that they have used this primarily wired up running all the time, and it did work at keeping their Jeep cool. I can't necessarily recommend that. That's when the clutch fan goes bad, which is the fan that comes off the engine block if I'm not mistaken. A few advantages to this: if you buy this model, it does have a plug that mates up directly with the wiring on the Jeep Cherokee. At least I know the Jeep Cherokee XJs. And supposedly the blade design is enhanced for better cooling. Now, the only real criticism I can make about this is the photos on Amazon don't really do this thing justice, because it looks like you're just getting like the fan and just maybe a slight frame around it. I didn't realize you get the entire shroud with it until you read into the details where it says that you do. Also, I'm not sure about the warranty on this. What I can tell you is that TYC, I've bought products from this company before, and they seem to make pretty good products. We buy their I bought a few sensors from them before, and then we also buy their cabin air filters for Honda Insight, and they match up with factory just fine. So the unit itself seems fairly heavy duty. It's got some weight to it. Again, just looking at it, and looking at the stock fan setup that I have out in the Jeep under the hood, it looks like it's going to match up 100%. You've got a couple little clips here. This is the only part that kind of scares me, is getting the old fan out without breaking any of the hinges and stuff. I hope this comes out okay. Might have to squeeze this maybe with some needle nose pliers. And I can't even see the one on the right side, so I hope it just pops right out. And I could be wrong. We'll see what happens when I actually remove it. There was a little bit of a complaint. Somebody said they had to remove some of the extra material on this side in order for it to bolt directly onto the radiator. But who knows? Maybe they had an aftermarket radiator. I'm not 100% sure. It says TYC item is TIY 3510, so that might be what you want to look for when you get this. Here's the other side. The blades, the design looks a little bit different from the factory blades. Obviously, they have to do that in order to not duplicate the factory setup. And your harness is, it's in the same spot. It's already bracketed onto the shroud. And it's a two-prong male plug, and again, removing that plug, I'm not usually very good at that, so hopefully taking the old plug off doesn't cause any problems. There's a little piece that I think you have to move and it'll separate. So we'll go ahead and get started with the install. And again, always you want to be safe when you do this, and you always want to start off with unhooking the battery whenever you work on anything electrical on the Jeep. Just my recommendation, all right? I'm kind of a nurse nanny. I'm a little bit too cautious when I work on my vehicle, but I also like to be safe. So let's go ahead and check it out. By the way, construction on this, seems to be all plastic, but again, the motor behind, the frame behind, also just an impact resistant plastic, but the motor itself is metal itself. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay guys, so please excuse the dirty engine bay here, but what I like to do, since we're dealing with something electrical, I recommend you unhook the battery first. So you want to unhook the negative terminal, which on this Jeep Cherokee XJ is on the left hand side. You got the minus there. Go ahead and loosen the bolt and pull that off. It'd be a good time to maybe clean the connectors while you're messing around with it, but that's up to you. But that's going to be our next step. Just ensure that the auxiliary fan doesn't accidentally come on while we're doing some work on it. Okay, once you have it unhooked, I just recommend maybe sitting it on a paper towel or a napkin, just something so it doesn't come in contact with the pulls, just so that it doesn't spark or arc or anything like that. Okay, so here's the electrical harness and the plug from the previous fan, the old fan, and I believe that there's a little tab right here. If you push up on it or push down on it, there's a little tab right there that you see that space. You should allow you to slide over the tab. This is kind of a locking tab that prevents the cable from coming unhooked. You may need to fiddle around with that for a few minutes, but that should make it easier for you to get the cable unplugged. And if you bought the TYC part that I have here, you should have the exact same plug that'll plug right into it. Now, something else you're going to see here, there's a little tab right here. Okay, there's a clip that goes over that little tab right there. You're going to have to pull up on this clip in order to get the plug to come out. So this little part slides right across and that unlocks the plug. Then right back here, you're going to see this when you get up close and start looking at it. Let's try to get a better view of that for you guys. There we go. There we go. So there's that little tab right there in the middle. This little clip that you see on the right and left side, this guy right here is actually clipped onto that. So you're going to need to pull up on this part, pull back on it, and then it should come unhooked for you. And here's what that piece looks like when you take it off. That's a little tab that I was talking about. I actually shoved a little screwdriver up in the front, flicked up on it, and pulled back, and it popped right out because it's like a little U-shaped piece of plastic that goes around it. So, okay, now the next step we want to do is go ahead and move on to what I'm actually going to do. Is you want to make sure the vehicle is nice and cool, but I'm going to go ahead and unhook this radiator cable right here, because when I take these two screws off, I'm going to get this hose out of the way so I have as much space as possible to drop in the new auxiliary fan. So if your vehicle's nice and cool, okay, you know, it hasn't been driven for a while. If you're cool, you can go ahead and just loosen this little band right here and then pop the hose off. But do not take the radiator cap off, especially if you've just been driving the vehicle. You don't want to do that. But if the vehicle's nice and cool, it's back down to cold temperature, you should be safe. But again, be careful when you do this. Okay, again, so what we did was just take a screwdriver to the little screw right here. Just go ahead and loosen that band a little bit. Okay, then you want to slowly pull the hose off. Okay, eventually it's going to pop off. There we go. Again, like I said, make sure the vehicle's nice and cool. You're going to be good to go. So now this is unhooked. Make sure you don't lose this band. So just go ahead and pull that off for now. Put that someplace safe so that you don't lose it. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and work on removing the bolt here and the bolt here before we attempt to pull up the auxiliary fan. Okay, so I'm not going to show this part on camera, but this is one of the two bolts you want to remove. There's one right here. This is again over on the radiator cap side. Then you also have one right over here. I'm going to go ahead and use an 8mm socket for that. I don't know if there's going to be like an American, like an inches standard equivalent, but that should do the job for you. So I'm not going to show that on camera. I'm just going to pull out the two bolts and then we will go from there. I'll let you know if there's anything that comes up in the middle of that process. Once you pull those two bolts out, go ahead and take this little drain hose and just pull it out of the way so you have some room to work with. You can kind of push it off to the side. Okay, so when you get done, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have one little screw or bolt right here, okay? And that's going to just stay in the little plastic fastener for the radiator hose. The other one's going to be right here. And what I'm going to do is just attempt to pull this up. If it comes right out, I'll let you know. You might have to watch out because there's some little spring clips underneath that you might have to pinch. And you really can't miss them. They're just directly underneath the fan. There's one you can see and there's one you can't see. So I'm hoping that we can just pull this thing right up. So I'm going to use... Okay, well that took me about 5 seconds. You may want to wear gloves when you do this part when you yank up on it, but again, there's a little tab here that's going to go underneath the metal. This is just going to pop out. There's not a lot of room here, and you can just go ahead and remove the old unit. Let's just do a little quick comparison of the factory unit right here with the aftermarket unit. Like I said before, obviously you're going to have a slightly different blade design due to the fact that this is a different company that made it, but they're very similar. This one's got some more of 90-degree turns in the blades. These are a bit more curved. This is the old factory unit. But this thing would just kind of howl and shriek when it would start up. I'm going to keep it just kind of around for emergencies in case I need to pop it back in, because it's really not a big deal. But these are those little clips I'm talking about. If these give you any trouble, you might have to go underneath the vehicle, underneath where the tabs are, and you can just squeeze them with the needle and those pliers and push up. And the new ones come with it also. All right, so let's go ahead and do the install here. And I can see where the little tabs are going to go right down here in front of the radiator. Kind of finagle that down there a little bit. It just goes right in. And I can see the little space. So a little bit tricky. You've got to get this little piece underneath the metal but then also you need to get it in the tab at the same time. Okay, I think we're going to be okay on that side. Left side looks good. Right side, I keep missing the loop. Alright. Again, it is basically a factory matchup part. Oh, you just got to push down on it a little bit and it just goes right in. Okay. There we go. So when I got underneath, I noticed that the tabs underneath this fan were not completely into the little mounting loops, and so I came back, and the little tabs have some spring pressure on. When you push down, you're going to hear it click on both sides. You're going to hear kind of a snapping sound, and it's good to go. It's now in there. If I try to pull up on it, there's going to be some tension from the spring clips holding it in place. But again, you can see that the little bolt holes are going to match up 100% with it. Again, this is probably a much easier process, but I've never done it before, so I thought, hey, why not just share the whole process with you? So what I'm going to do now, again, is go ahead and take that little 8mm socket, and we're going to go ahead and just, well, first of all, we're going to reattach the power cable. Go ahead and get that done first, and then we're going to go ahead and bolt in the 2 screws that go into the fan to bolt it back up against the frame up here on the front, and then we're going to reconnect the hose here with that little band on the little nozzle right here on the radiator cable. So here's the old one. This is the sound. Let's see if I can get it to... It would just howl, like, you know, when this thing's spinning full speed. It would just go on and on and on. Okay, so now here it is when we got the new one installed here. All right. Gonna show you. So this was the one bolt that we put in. The little band is back onto the overflow hose right here on the radiator cap. The power cable and the hose, I mean, this, you know, you got a little space right here for the power cable. This is just where it goes, and the hose may just be kind of sitting on top of that. You can kind of just pull it across. I think you're going to be okay. Shouldn't cause any problems. Again, make sure that the line just runs. Now, I do have a broken bracket right here. I don't know exactly where this is supposed to go, maybe right here, but it's never caused any problems. And then it just goes into the overflow tank. So when you're all done, let's go and take a look at the other side here. It's kind of hard to do with the shadows. The sun's kind of going down here, guys. All right, so this is what it looks like when you're all done. There you go. Again, it was a nice drop-in fit. Once you get the little spring clips in there, it just locks into place, and then you bolt it in. It's not going anywhere. I mean, it's solid. You don't want to over-tighten these bolts, by the way, because there's just little tabs of plastic here. If you over-tighten the bolts, there's a chance that you could crack them, especially this guy's got a little bit of flex in him. Where's he at? Right there. If you can really see it, but there's a little bit of a bow in the plastic, but not much. I made sure not to over tighten it, and I'll check it a couple times this week once this runs and make sure that nothing's coming loose. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much the process. So all we really needed, guys, was just a pair of pliers to unhook the battery, little 8mm socket piece to loosen up the bolts, just a regular flathead screwdriver to take the band off, and that's more or less it. So hopefully it was clear enough the way I explained it to you. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and let it run. I don't know if I'll be able to get the fan to turn on because it's still kind of cool out, but we're just going to turn on and see if we can get it to go anyway. Plug, just a little difficult because you have to make sure that little tiny little pin, that little clip in the back top part snaps into place when you put it back in. And then you'll know you have it right because you can, that little red slider plate I showed you earlier, it'll slide across and lock like it did before. It should block part of the plug so the plug doesn't come out. If you can't slide that little red slider part across the two pieces when you put them together, if you can't slide that across, then you know that you don't have the plug in far enough. Eventually I pushed it and I heard it go click, and that's how I knew that it clicked on that little tab in the back, so that makes it pretty obvious. So I'm going to go ahead and start this up and just let it run, take a look at it, make sure nothing starts on fire, and we'll be back in a few minutes, guys. All right, hang tight. All right, so I was able to capture that running just for a few seconds, and I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. Well, guys, we are back home from just doing a quick little test drive there. Basically, my fan will kick in when my temperature gets above 210 degrees. Took it on the highway, stopped at a stoplight, and it did kick in for just like maybe 5 or 10 seconds. It must push a lot of air because it did drop the temperature quickly, a lot quicker than my stock fan used to. So I'm convinced that we're good to go. You can hear it kick in. It almost kind of sounds like you're just revving up the engine a little bit. It kind of has kind of a kind of sound to it, and not nearly as loud as the old fan. So don't worry about that. You're definitely going to notice a difference when you put it in. In fact, I could barely even hear it, and so that's a bonus. So if you see the temperature dropping at a time when your temperature typically changes and you're sitting, say, at a stoplight, you should be able to hear the fan kick in. It's hard for me to get this to manually just come on because it's only 70 degrees outside right now. So when I rev up a little bit, it does cool the engine temperature down. So the whole point behind all this is that you're good to go. You plug it in, you should hear it kick in at some point, and I think you're going to be all set. So guys, thanks for joining us on a basic overview and installation of the TYC cooling fan, radiator cooling fan for the 97 to 01 Jeep Cherokee. Remember, this is an auxiliary fan. It kicks in once your Jeep gets to a certain temperature. It's not the clutch fan coming off the motor. But guys, if you like what you see, please like or subscribe, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm also on gunchannels.com. Got a Saturday morning podcast called Caliber Corner. You can check that out. It's on at 8 a.m. Central Time over on gunchannels.com, and I'm on Gunstreamer and UGEtube as well as guntube.org. So make sure you check it out. But guys, that's it. Hopefully bring you some more future Jeep videos here. We just kind of add one every couple months, as well as the firearms footage that you see on the channel. But guys, that's it. I want you to have fun. I want you to be safe. Please like and subscribe. And as always, we will talk to you soon. All right, take care and have a great week. Bye-bye.